Hey folks, last night was a top 10 on the X Factor performing rock and roll music, or as Steve Jones said at the beginning of the show, music in the style of rock and roll, which pretty much let us know with that little disclaimer at the beginning of the show that there was not going to be any rock and roll to be found, and there really wasn't. You know, I was never a fan of the theme weeks on American Idol because I thought they were always too limiting and too old-fashioned for the most part. But in this case, I think the themes need to be narrowed down. Cowell had said in an interview last week that this week was initially supposed to be the music of Madonna and Lady Gaga, but that they decided that that theme was too limiting for contestants like Astro, so they decided to open it up to rock and roll, and I think that was a mistake. I don't think Cowell gets the audience. I would rather see people take chances, and nobody's really taken any chances. Even with the judges deciding the songs for them, they still aren't really coming out of their shells. The first contestant of the night was Leroy Bell. Now, a couple of years ago, Leroy decided to get a tattoo all up and down his arm so that he'd be forced to pursue music full time. Well, you know, in his old-fashioned way of thinking, if he has a tattoo, he won't be able to find a real job. And I don't know if that's true anymore. You know, he'd probably still be able to find a job, but maybe not a good job. But he could always, you know, sling burritos or haul trash, couldn't he? I don't know, but why would you try to tattoo yourself out of employment when you're so close to retirement anyway? Anyway, Leroy sang Why Don't You Stay by Bob Seger, and it started out perfect. You remember last week we saw Leroy sing the U2 song, and he took 2 steps forward. So I figured Rock Week would be right up his alley, and unfortunately I figured wrong. Like I said, it started out perfect, Leroy sounded fantastic, but once the song kicked it up a notch, Leroy seemed to kick it back a couple of notches. It didn't seem to pick up like it really needed to, and Leroy's voice, it just seemed to kind of fall apart through the best parts of the song. So it started out the best that I've ever heard Leroy, and ended up the worst that I've heard him. He could definitely be in trouble this week. In the clip before the performance, Reid had said that Leroy was boring, and this did nothing to change his mind. Paula thinks there needs to be more of a connection. Simon says that for Rock Week, he should have been a shark and came across as a dolphin. Nicole thinks that this is the best that Leroy has ever sounded. And then she reminded everybody that he's 60 years old. You know, I think that felt a little bit desperate. Steve Jones says, what do you think about those horrible comments? I think Steve was kind of trying to remind people that he was still there and that he was the host of the show. Simon told him to shut it. Next was Rachel Crow with I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Simon, Rachel isn't old enough for any satisfaction. Well, you know, Simon wanted to find a rock song with a blues influence, and this is the best that he could come up with. He wanted her to connect to the lyrics and feel the song. He is aware that this song is about not being able to get any nookie, isn't he? I know Rachel sings beyond her years about love and stuff like that, love and heartbreak, and that's fine, but this is a song that really had a hard time getting played back in the day because it was considered too raunchy. And even Britney Spears covered it when she was trying to take herself up another notch on the sleaze level, so horrible song choice for the youngest kid in the competition. It was nice to see her move around on the stage for a change instead of being stood up on one of those boxes where I'm always afraid that she's going to fall off every week like she has been the last 3 weeks. And I guess that she did as good as she possibly could have with it, but still, I just didn't get it. I didn't get the song choice. The judges gave her a standing go, but that was based more, I think, on not wanting to hurt Rachel's feelings. Because even if you don't consider the wonky song choice, the performance was just okay. There's nothing to write home about. If she had been a few years older, they probably would have told her the same thing that they told Leroy Bell. It was a step backward for Rachel this week. I think she'll be okay then. LA thought it wasn't just some karaoke. Nicole thought it was a perfect song choice, and that it was Rachel's best performance. I don't know about that. Paula loves that Rachel is starting to connect with the audience, and Simon thinks that she can win. I'm not sure at this point, not if you keep choosing her songs, Simon Cowell. Next was Rene. Now, before his performance, Chris told us what he's been doing to stay clean and sober. You know, he goes to meetings and all that jazz. But after his interaction with the judges last week, after his performance, I'm still not convinced that he hasn't fallen off the wagon at least once. And they've stopped giving us a day count, you know, how many days or how many months he's been sober. So I'm not sure that he's stayed clean and sober. So who knows? But how ironic is it that he should then get on stage and cover a song from one of the most notorious potheads of all time, Bob Marley. Hell, Bob Marley's family even buried him with some marijuana so that he'd have something to smoke in the afterlife. So, you know, I don't even know. And hell, I almost got high watching this performance with all the peace signs and stuff. It felt like the perfect performance to get stoned to, and I don't even smoke weed. Anyway, I thought this was a horrible song choice. Not rock and roll at all. It doesn't matter that Bob Marley was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hell, so was Madonna, but nobody would consider her rock music. But yeah, Chris proved once again that he is not a very good singer, and he could be in trouble this week. And that Occupy Wall Street or Occupy All Streets t-shirt that he was wearing in the end of his, that he revealed at the end of his performance, I don't think it did him any favors. Not a smart time to be making political statements, Chris Rene. Nicole thought it was original and she rocked with it, but she was confused. Not a surprise there. Paula said it doesn't matter that Chris isn't the best vocalist. Simon said it would have been great if this had been reggae music, and LA was happy that Chris stayed on key. We must have been listening to something completely different because it sounded a mess to me. Next was Stacy Francis. Now apparently Stacy is letting her past dark relationship inspire her for this performance. She stopped short of calling it abuse, like she used to call it abusive, and now she doesn't really call it abusive anymore. Now, initially, didn't Stacy make it seem like she had been with this man for a long time, and he just dragged her down emotionally? From everything I've read, they were only married for a few months before having it annulled, and he was a music producer, and she was upset because he wouldn't produce a record for her and turn her into a superstar. It seemed like she married him maybe only for that reason. I think she's trying to pull out all the stops now and go back to her abuse story, even though it's kind of been proven to be false from everything I've read online. Maybe she's telling the truth, but they were only married for a few months, and she's done a lot of stuff since then, so I don't know if I really believe her. I think she's making up stories. Anyway, she sang It's All Coming Back to Me Now. Nicole Scherzinger introduced the song as originally by Meatloaf, and Meatloaf eventually did record this song a few years ago, but most of us know it better by Celine Dion, which seems to be the version that Stacy was trying to do and failed miserably. First off, her hair looked awful again this week. Now, last week we were introduced to Stacy's massive forehead, and so I guess that she realized it was a mistake showing off all that forehead, because this week she overcompensated with the bangs and damn near covered her entire face. And she sounded just horrible. To call it over-singing would be an understatement. It was just a complete mess from beginning to end. The worst that we've heard of Stacy so far, and that's saying a lot. LA said that she sang it really well, and he's going to leave it at that. This was Paula's least favorite performance. You know, when Paula Abdul starts out with, I'm going to be really honest, you were terrible. Simon said that he wanted rock, and this was a pebble, and that it was like a performance at a Hilton hotel while everyone is turning their back eating peanuts. Stacy does not take criticism well at all, does she? She would not even take that frown off her face when Nicole Scherzinger was singing her praises. Well, Stacy said that she wanted to sing this song for her fanatics who are her online fans. Big mistake. It's about making more fans, not just pleasing the ones that are going to be pleased with anything you do anyway. Because if anybody was happy with your performance last week, those aren't the ones you need to please. Next was Melanie Amaro. Now, I knew this was going to be a big letdown when Simon felt the need to remind us that this was a rock song by a rock band 20 times, even before the performance ever started. And then when he said it wasn't an up-tempo song, I am just getting so frustrated with Simon. For all the talk of him being such a great judge and all this, he sure has proven to be a horrible mentor. I just keep hoping that maybe it's a part of his strategy and that Melanie's going to get a song that she can have a moment with soon. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, and it could have happened this week with a rock and roll song. Melanie's got this voice that is almost effortless, and she could have killed maybe a Tina Turner song or something like that because her voice is so flawless. But it's that flawless voice that actually worked against her with this song. Everybody Hurts by R.E.M. Great song. But part of the perfection is the imperfect vocals of the song. So when somebody like Melanie sings a song, it loses that emotion that you have when somebody that can't really sing sings it. And taking it to church at the end did not do her any favors either. The camera kept panning down to Simon Cowell, and with all the lighting and stuff, he looked like the devil getting ready to eat the soul of his contestant. And sadly, that's exactly what he's doing to Melanie Amaro. LA said that was so not rock. Nicole was confused because the song always makes her cry, but didn't make her cry when Melanie sang it. Paula said you took us to church, and she wants Melanie to cut loose. It reminded Simon of Adele and Alicia Keys. And then when Simon and L.A. started talking about what was rock and what wasn't rock, and Simon suggested that L.A. call up R.E.M. and tell them that they aren't a rock band. Simon, they aren't a rock band. They broke up a couple of months ago. Next was Josh Krajcik. Josh says that Nicole is a great mentor and she gives great advice. But in his case, it seems to me like Nicole just kind of stands back and lets him do his own thing. And I guess that's why he kind of likes her. She's more of a cheerleader than a mentor. Anyway, finally 6 performances into Rock Week, and we finally get a rock performance. Josh sang The Pretender by the Foo Fighters, and, it was okay. It was, but by no means it was his best performance, no. But he gets props for actually singing a rock song for Rock Week, even though I thought the song was kind of forgettable. He also gets props for finally washing that hair. It's not greasy. It seems so clean and pretty and not greasy and gross like it usually is. So kudos to him for that. Of course, still present were the manic faces that he makes, but with the lighting, you really couldn't see his face that much. Speaking of hair, though, if I were L.A. Reid or Paula Abdul, I would have grabbed a handful of Nicole Scherzinger's hair and told her to sit her ass down and quit swinging that stuff in my face. L.A. said, "You're the only person that has really rocked the house tonight." Paula thought it was the best of the night and Josh's best performance so far. Simon thought it was once again bloody fantastic, and Nicole said, "That's how it's done, America." I wasn't crazy about it, and I think it would have been better with a better song choice. I was kind of bored by the song. Next was Astro. Now, of course, he's the one that we were all expecting to come out and really sing the hell out of a rock song on Rock Week, right? Okay, maybe not. So this was the obvious song choice for him. "I'll Be Missing You" by Puff Daddy, or P. Diddy, or whatever the hell his name is these days, which could only count for a rock song because it sampled Every Breath You Take by The Police or Sting or whoever the hell it used to be by. But it was hardly a challenge for Astro, and it wasn't a rock song by any means. And that's my problem with him. L.A. Reid said that other people have been up and down, and Astro has been consistently good, and that's because he doesn't have to worry about singing. He just has to come up with some rhymes and then just spit them out. And so he doesn't have to worry about messing up that note or singing good. And, the standard for a rock song is a hip-hop song that samples a rock song. He really isn't having to be that creative. With an R&B singer having to sing on Country Week, that can be challenging for them, but they can still pull it off. With a rapper, it seems like not even the same competition because it's not the same thing. Take, for instance, Carlos Santana, great musician, great guitar player, can't sing to save his life. And that's the same thing with a rapper. A rapper is not a singer. Now, I'm not one of these people that says that rap isn't music. I mean, I guess it is, but it's not the same thing as singing. And so it doesn't feel like it fits the same in the competition. They don't have to, it's not the same, you don't have to do the same things as you do when you sing. So it feels like, I don't know, maybe if I know Simon wants the X Factor to come up with the next big rapper, but maybe he should start a different competition because singing and rapping are not the same thing. Nicole thought it was a smart song choice, and she thinks he's ready for a $5 million recording contract. Paula wants to know if he can suck just for once. Paula, I don't think he wants to. I don't think he swings that way. Simon thinks that he has a shot at winning, and L.A. thinks so too. I disagree. I think he'll be around for a while, but in the end, can he really beat out a singer? I just don't think he can. Next was Paula's only remaining group, Lakoda Rayne. Now, we probably learned more about these girls in a few moments before their performance than we have all season. One of them is homeschooled, one of them runs a daycare, one of them is from South Africa. Who would have thunk that one of these lily white girls in Lakoda Rayne is actually an African American? I thought it was smart, though, to talk about them as individuals before their performance, and then it was smart to have their names behind them when they started singing, because that's the biggest problem with these groups. It is so tough to connect with them when it feels like they're just a bunch of people. It's almost hard to even have any compassion for them when they're in danger on results night. It's like on The Silence of the Lambs. Buffalo Bill says, "It places the lotion in the basket. It does this whenever it's told." And he was able to snuff out these girls with no problem because he didn't see them as human. He viewed them as objects. Much like America has no problem snuffing out the hopes and dreams of these groups because they don't feel like individuals. And so these girls really need to be like that girl in The Whale saying, "Hey, mister, I'm a human being." Of course, they're also going to have good performances to go along with it. And I don't think they did that this week. They started out on boxes singing "I Don't Want to Lose Your Love Tonight," and then went into Fleetwood Mac's "Go Your Own Way," which is their second Fleetwood Mac song. And it wasn't awful, but I really didn't feel like they brought anything to it. I know Paula wants to compare them to the Dixie Chicks, and a lot of people have compared them to the Dixie Chicks because they're like crossover country, but really the blonde hair is the only thing they have in common with the Dixie Chicks. I think they're more like Wilson Phillips. The Dixie Chicks, they only have one lead singer. Wilson Phillips, they have like different lead singers for different songs. And so I think in that situation, they're more like Wilson Phillips. And Wilson Phillips actually did cover "Go Your Own Way." If Lakoda Rayne had done that version of the song, it could have been great, but instead, it was just forgettable. Lucky for them, though, they're the only group left. If they end up in the bottom two, and there's a really good chance that they will, then maybe the other judges will be feeling compassionate and save Paula's contestant, save the one whoever's contestant is in the bottom two. L.A. said that it was the first time he's ever seen them have fun. Nicole said that she wants to see them let go even more. Simon thought it was a complete mess, and Paula compared them, of course, to the Dixie Chicks. Next was Drew. Now, Drew was upset because L.A. Reid was mean to her last week. But she said it herself, she has never in her life gotten negative feedback. So she's never felt a need to do anything different because everybody likes what she's already doing, and so I think that's her problem. It's like cooking a meal, and if it doesn't taste bad, nobody's going to tell you that it's bad because it doesn't really taste bad, But finally, one person tells you, it's kind of bland. And you realize that you forgot to, season it up. And I think that's her problem. She's just not seasoned, and she has no reason to season up her performances because everybody loves them, and nobody's telling her that they need that. So L.A. Reid is right. She is doing the same thing every week, of course. So is Astro, but nobody's calling him out on it. But still, Simon said that we're going to see a different Drew this week, but hasn't he said that every week? And we keep seeing the same thing. And I guess he was right in a way. She did look better than she looked last week. Last week she looked like a clown. And so I guess we did see a different Drew this week, but we didn't hear a different Drew. She sang U2's With or Without You, slowed down, of course, and sang in typical Drew fashion, pleasant but no surprises. It's like if you know what Drew is going to be singing, you already know exactly what it's going to sound like, and so I'm getting very bored with her. L.A. Reid still thought it wasn't anything different. Nicole was waiting for more, and she was a little frustrated. Paula wants to hear her do an up-tempo. Thank God. Simon told Drew to take no notice of the three witches to his right. He is wrong. It is not just about appealing to your fan base. It's about expanding it. And she's not doing that. She's not expanding her fan base. Actually, I think she's losing some of it by doing the same thing every week. And the last of the night was Marcus Canty. This week we find out that Marcus is a conservative church boy that doesn't want to compromise his morals. Well, that ain't a letdown, is it? I mean, it's a noble way to be, but we've seen on American Idol so many times over the years, young black men are almost always pigeonholed as church singers or Luther Vandross types. And early on it felt like Marcus could defy that and be more of that, like an Usher type. Of course, I think he needs to be a little edgier and kind of get rid of those goofy grins that he usually sports. But now you get the sense that he isn't comfortable doing anything edgy, and so he doesn't want to do anything that can't be shown in church, and so he feels uncomfortable doing anything else. And that's fine, but it really could limit him in today's world. So how does L.A. Reid counter all this? Well, it's easy. He makes Marcus perform in front of the fires of hell, laying on his back, singing to the nether regions of a half a dozen scantily clad women. You're going to hell, Marcus Canty. No, I'm kidding. I thought it was a decent performance, but it just felt a little uncomfortable. Nicole said, you lit that stage on fire. Paula said, you are the entertainer of this competition. Simon said, your mentor, the devil, just put you in hell, but he didn't think the song suited him. And L.A. said, you rocked. Now, apparently, though, Marcus is rooting for Leroy Bell, because as Steve Jones was giving out his number and saying 1-0, Marcus kept going 0-1. And so maybe he wants people to vote for Leroy. Anyway, so that was it for the night. I had no favorites. I didn't vote for anybody. Nobody was worth voting for. And going home, in the bottom two, I don't know, probably Lakoda, Rayne, and maybe Stacy Francis or Leroy Bell. It's really hard to say at this point because nobody was that great. I think it could be anyone. Maybe we're in for a surprise this week. So anyway, that's it for the night. I'll see you folks tomorrow.